Thought I'd talk to you today about one of the most commonly occurring problems that I see in our culture, and that's the problem of overwhelm. Now, you're not going to have to look too far before you see somebody who's just got too much on their plate, not enough time to do it, and probably not the skills necessary to do all of it to the degree that they wanted to do it. Consequently, in fact, when I say you're not going to have to look too far, you probably could just look in the mirror and see someone who's overwhelmed. So, what do we do about overwhelm? Well, interesting enough, there's a kind of like a very common response to overwhelm that like more than 99% of people exhibit. And guess what that is? We freeze in terror. We're kind of just stuck. So, the first sign of overwhelm is usually this also overwhelming procrastination. In other words, I've got more to do than I can imagine doing. There's nowhere near enough time, and I'm frozen in time, and I find myself procrastinating. Right now, on Facebook, and like it's the end of the world, and saying to myself, "This is not helping." And the frightening thing about this is, I can be talking to myself saying, "Don't do this procrastinating thing. It's costing you more time, and the more time it costs you, the more you move towards your deadlines. With like, in other words, the deadlines are approaching, and you're not getting stuff done, which means the overwhelm is multiplying in size, and it's all getting worse, and we're stuck there, just unable to handle it, and unable to get ourselves going with it. Interesting enough, that's not just the only signs of it, right? The external signs of overwhelm, there's a zillion of them, but quite often you'll come across someone who's just plain cranky. They'll say, "Oh, I'm stressed," or whatever it is, but they can be cranky. Other people are frantic, running around in circles, doing a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, almost totally ineffective, and yet can't stop themselves from moving from one thing to another, trying to get little bits done because they're scared that if they take their attention off things for too long, that all those balls they've got up in the air, one of them's going to fall, that's going to cascade the whole lot of them, and everything's going to fall in a heap. There's things like palpitations. People have panic attacks as a result of, the palpitations get strong, the breathing gets rapid, the temperature goes up. Simply why? Well, because there's so much going on that I just can't cope, and the brain just short circuits and says to itself, "I need a break, I'm out of here," and we're not very effective at all. So there are two separate strategies I'm going to recommend to you as far as handling overwhelm is concerned. They're short term and long term. So, what do we do in the short term? Well, it's not actually what we do in the long term. So, these things might sound counterproductive. What it means is you've got to pull them both off. You've actually got to do the short term thing now. At the same time, you've got to do the long term thing. Otherwise, you'll be doing the short term thing forever and nothing's really changed. So what do we do short term? Well, most immediately, the most effective thing with overwhelm is to get out a piece of paper and a pen and make a list of all of the things that need to be done. For some strange reason, when it comes out of our head and onto a piece of paper, things start to settle down. Mind you, you can end up with a gigantic piece of paper and a list of things to do that are actually a bit mind-boggling, and that's why we're a little bit scared to do it, is we think, geez, it's not only going to waste time writing down all the things I'm going to do, but the list is going to frighten me. But the alternative is pretty terrible, because what that means is you're going to get all these balls and put them up in the air, or the guy juggling the saucers with the wiggly stick. You've got to move faster and faster to keep them all going, and as you add one more thing and one more thing and one more thing, then those things it takes him longer to get around the whole circuit, so he's got to move faster. And so most of us keep all those balls juggling in the air. We can't take our eye off them. We're kind of going like this. We can't look away. And then someone throws a chainsaw in amongst them, and that's up in there. We're juggling these bubbles plus a chainsaw and all that sort of stuff. And then someone throws in, the kids are crooks, so we put that in, and that goes up there as well. And then someone throws in, you're going to get made redundant, so that goes in. We juggle all that as well. And the whole thing, at some point, the whole thing comes cascading down. When we go to the logistics, which is make the list, what happens is our brain gets something that it can handle, right? Because it's no longer focused up there and can get a helicopter view across the whole lot of thing. Because once you've got this enormous list, and yes, it's probably going to be more than you can do today, and that's bad news, what you can do then, if you're a realist, is look at it and say, what the most important thing I can do with this list is prioritize it. And that means, let's look at it from the point of view, if I could only get one thing done today, because I've got a plan to do 20 things, but the chances are, as soon as it hits 9 o'clock, customers are going to interrupt, children are going to interrupt, spouses are going to interrupt, things are going to go wrong, and my to-do list is going to get murdered by the onslaught of the day. So I need to sort of understand things are going to go wrong. So if I'm only going to get one thing done today, of all the things on this list, which one would make the biggest difference in terms of progress for my life, my business, my family, or whatever it is, whatever the context is that you're looking at. So if it's a business, then which activity in the business, which achievement in the business is going to make the biggest difference to the business? If it's a family, what event or gathering or meeting or whatever is going to move our convivial family life together the most? If it's something else, what is the thing that is going to move us forward the most in that? So regardless of the subject, prioritize by saying, not what is the easiest, not what is the hardest, not what is the most time consuming, but what is the one that's going to move us the furthest forward. That gets a number one beside it. You then say, if that didn't exist, what would be number one? If that one wasn't there, that becomes number two. So prioritizing means in order of how much good they will do us or the business or the family or whatever your context is. Because when you prioritize, what it means is if you're only going to get one thing done today, at least the thing that you got done was the one that's going to move you the furthest forward. It may not be great, but it's the one that has the biggest difference and is therefore worthy of your effort. When it comes to, and we're still in the now thing, I'll tell you what to do long term, but we're still in the now thing. The first is make the list. The second is prioritize it. The third thing is compartmentalize it. In other words, when it comes to doing whatever's number one on the list, if necessary and if possible, you close the door, you put the headphones on, your favourite bit of music, you blast that through your head and you focus on, I'm getting this done now and nothing can interrupt this because it has to be done by a certain period of time or whenever it is, and you allow time for it, you put some time frames around it and you hop into it. In other words, compartmentalizing means no multitasking. It is get this done and get this nailed. Now the reason behind that, there's a long-term strategy here in the for now strategies, and that boils down to if you are doing that, at least you are kicking goals that are major rather than kicking goals that are minor. If you're going to do anything, do the things that are going to move you forward fastest the first. Okay, so that's the short-term strategy. That can take serious amount of implementing. You're probably going to have to get your brain and whip it into shape to make it realize how important it is that you do that. What are they? Number one, make the list. Number two, prioritize. Number three, compartmentalize so that you can get stuff done. In the short term, that's going to work, but you can still redline your life. You can still be going too fast for what's healthy for you because of how big that list is. So let's look at the long term. What is the strategy for long term, overcoming overwhelm long term? And it pretty much boils down to this. If you're in this set of circumstances, there's too much on your plate. What you need to do is figure out how you can reduce your responsibilities. What that means is you didn't say to yourself when a new task came along, can I do this? Well, what you did is you said, can I do this? The answer is yes. You didn't say to yourself, should I do this? Would it be better if somebody else did this? So this is the point. What we need to do long term is start looking at what we can get off our list altogether. What responsibilities do you have that are greater than you can handle? And so maybe you do have to resign as the secretary of the local P&C. Maybe you're not going to run the local dog training club anymore. Maybe you're going to say to your kids, one sport, not three. Maybe you're going to go to some of their events, not all of them. Maybe you're going to say date night is more important than working late at night. So what you can do is you can start to say some things have got to get off the list. It's plain and it's simple. If you're going too fast, there's only so long that you can keep going too fast. There's a limited time to that. Most of us redline and assume that we can keep redlining. In fact, we find ways to go faster next year. I've got a checkered history, and part of my background is that I had a bunch of mates and clients at the time who were car dealers. And every now and then they'd get a junker that was going to the junkyard, and they'd save them up, they'd put them in the back of their yard, and they'd get together and have a few beers, and they'd get out these old junkers, and they'd start them up, and they'd put a brick on the accelerator, and they'd place bets to see which one was going to blow up first. And the reason I tell you that story is it's very illustrative of what I'm talking about. If you redline, you'll blow up. The question is not will you blow up, not will you explode, not will you go up in a heap of smoke. The question is when. And that's what we're most used to bet about. We know that if you redline that motor for too long, it's going to disintegrate. And so that's true for a human being as well. It's just that we think we can do it because we coped with it today. We got through it today. So we go, okay, so got through it today. So maybe I'm better at handling this stuff than I thought I was and whatever. I'm saying the more you cut it down, the more you have a chance to be really, really good at something, which is actually more success rather than being moderately good at a whole lot of things. Being excellent at some things is actually feeds your soul and nurtures you and makes you realize there is something to me. So the big thing for that is it's a vote for you. The mental health aspect of this is I'm saying I'm going to cut things down so that I can do them better out of self-respect, out of self-care. I'm actually going to nurture the resource, that is me. I'm the only resource I've got in my life. I've got a lot of support from the people who love me, but I'm the one who's not going to have to pull it off. So long-term, it's a vote for you. So the short-term strategy and the long-term strategy, you've heard them explained really. Now it's time for you to figure out how to get on with it.